Joe likes Scorsese, and Raanan is Jewy. It's Joe and Raanan talk movies.
All right, we're back with Joe and Raanan talk movies. Joe, as you know, is on hiatus till September, and we're going to take a break, but I was getting mixed signals. A couple people messaged me and were like, I'm going to kill myself if we don't have more episodes. Other people messaged me, if you do an episode without Joe, I'm not watching. So a lot of mixed signals there. I didn't know who to like listen to, because I'm trying to please the fans, but half of them are like, please do, and the other half is like, if you even have the audacity to think you are anything without Joe.
So you know some are going to skip.
Yeah, some are going to skip.
The ratings will take a dip, you know?
But our suicidal demographic is going to really be all on this one. And Joe's coming back. And honestly, we got Dan Perlman, who's better than Joe. Joe made one movie that he co-wrote, you know? You wrote and directed a TV show. That's bigger. A TV show's like 20 movies.
Oh, it's apples and oranges, but who's to say which is better and which is worse? But I'm glad you said it, and I don't have to.
Well, yours is, I mean, I guess it's a TV show, so technically we're no longer even doing the theme of this podcast. But other than that...
Well, it all blends now. It's all clips for Instagram.
That's
a movie, a show. It's all things you subtitle that you have somebody cut up.
I've been doing this thing on the road now. It's really fun where I'll go on stage and, like, let's say I have a riff 10 minutes in. I go, all right, got the clip, shut it down, and I just leave the stage and the show's just over.
Yeah.
Got the clip. None of this is necessary anymore.
I did that. I was somewhere and I was like, oh, are you guys in school? And they're like, no, we work. And I was like, what do you do? And they're all like, oh, we're in finance. And I was like, ah. And I was like, there it is. Subtitle it.
You got it, baby.
Comedian has small talk.
I scroll through Instagram now and stand-up videos. Every stand-up video now begins with, every opening line is, what was that? That's every opening line. What was that?
It's a lot
What'd you say? Someone say something, please.
It's
for the love of God.
It's a lot of the funnier person being off screen, and yet has the comedian's name.
Yeah.
And yet it's the audience member.
You really should be having the other angle. Yeah.
Really should have the other angle, because it's usually them saying a crazy story.
Yeah. As a director now, you're probably watching that going, you're shooting the wrong thing.
Well, yeah, because the comedian's just going like, whoa.
Whoa. Really?
Like,
oh my God.
I suppose.
See me on these dates.
See me feigning greater surprise than necessary.
Well, it's great
at people who are or are not a couple.
Yeah,
that's really the
exactly.
question.
It's great too. Like follow, I go first to a lot of shows, and I'll follow a host. And most hosts now are basically just doing a census of. They're just literally like, how many people are in your household? How many Latinos are in your family? They just do a census, and then I have to follow that. I say a joke, and everyone's like, whoa! When did you make this about you? When did you fucking...
Wait a second.
This should be about how long I've been married. You're not talking about how long I've been married. Why am I listening to this?
Oh, that's your dad? Why aren't you saying, oh, that's your dad?
Yeah, so it's tough out there, but... But so I was thinking, I was like, can we talk about the show? This is a movie podcast, but this will piss off Joe on two different levels. I said you're better, and he hates TV.
Does he really?
So it'll be a real sacrilege having it.
I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry.
He hates.
Think you're great. Love the.
He hates Sopranos, like that, which is I think that shows you hate TV if you hate Sopranos.
Sure, yeah. But he hates Italians.
Maybe he just hates Italians. Yeah. That's right. But it is weird. He hates Sopranos, even though it's full of all the slurs he tends to love. I don't.
What does he hate? I mean, we wouldn't speak. He's not here.
He finds the show. He sees a little fakeness or sitcominess that he does that he feels like he doesn't have in certain movies like Goodfellas. I think the mobster stuff seems sometimes over the top or cartoony. I can't disagree. It's its own weird tone. I mean,
yeah, but that's that's what I like about it. I mean, it's
100% wrong. I mean, it's like
the best dramas have like comedy in them, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. But
like whether it's movie or TV, and that show has that, you know.
But watching like Flatbush, I'm like, this is. I mean, it is TV, but it is blended. Like it is
Yeah, well-
kind of like Louie. It feels like little movies.
Yeah, the name of the show, it's Flatbush Misdemeanors. It's on Showtime, which I guess just merged with Paramount today. So if you have one, you get them both
Oh,
now.
this is good, right?
Cheap. Yeah, I think
That's
it's
probably
good.
better for right.
Yeah, I don't know. More people would see it.
Yeah.
Just DM me. I'll give you my password. It's totally fine. Just give it to me. I just want you to see the thing.
Is it upsetting that some I watch? I love it. A lot of people love
Thank
it.
you,
Is it upsetting that some people are like, I just don't have Showtime, so I'm never gonna try to watch it. Do you get upset by that?
I
or
know
no?
comics don't watch anything, so I don't. Anytime a comic watch, like the fact that you've
Yeah.
watched some, I'm like very appreciative of that because I know I would never watch anything. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
ever.
I watched like 8 episodes. No. Well, how many? I watched the whole first season. And
Yeah.
then watch. I feel like if I had a show on like Peacock,
yeah, I would watch it.
you would. Yeah, the amount that I watched for years, I'd say it's even.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I feel like you might even go lower on me.
No, I don't know. I would be very curious. I would watch it. You're like, what the fuck is he doing? No, I would love it.
I love the show. The show's great. It's so funny. You crack me up so much on it.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's you up there. It's just a lot of funny shit. A lot of funny.
Can you
little
explain?
nuances.
I know how I have to explain it, but how would you describe it?
The show?
Yeah. Tell the folks at home.
Well, the show is like it's an interesting tone. It's like it's kind of an interesting mix of a certain kind of like you got the deadpan humor of you and Kevin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mixed was kind of like almost a gritty urban feel mixed with Curb Your Enthusiasm type plotting and antics. You know what I mean?
That's a
And
nice
it's
breakdown.
it's a great flow, and
Yeah.
so it's like an interesting mix of like real elements, but also mixed with like sometimes like more broader elements at times. But
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah, I like that there's jokes in it.
There's jokes.
Because a lot of shows that are like single cam like that are like have dramatic elements, like you watch it and you're like, there's nothing about this that's a comedy except that it's a half hour.
Yes,
like it's not
exactly.
funny. All these shows are getting acclaimed as like the best comedies right now are not
Exactly,
funny.
and this is joke. Really joke heavy.
It's like joke dense, yeah.
but
which I'm proud of.
aesthetically, it's an interesting mix of something that's joke heavy, but aesthetically looks like it's not going to be joke heavy.
Right, yeah.
It looks like
From
it's going to
the
be,
aesthetic, yeah.
know,
You'd think it's
rambly,
Yeah.
rambly. You know what I mean? So I like it. It's
Yeah,
an interesting
yeah.
tone to me.
Well, thanks, man.
And I guess in a way, it's kind of like the title, which is a poorly timed influence to Woody Allen.
Nobody picks up on that. Nobody picks up on that. Flatbush Misdemeanors and there's the Crimes and Misdemeanors. Subtle reference
like,
to it.
I hope they don't get this one.
Nobody's picking up on that. Nobody's picking up
So
on
they
that.
haven't. No one has, huh?
Well, the original title was Flatbush Annie Hall, and so no, but no, they never.
It was Bushwick. I want to fuck a kid, and and I will. I do have to make an apology. At one time when you were doing the webisode, I was like, "Your show," and I called it something else. Do you remember this?
I don't, because people have done that a lot. They'll say
yeah, I
because
was like-
it's a very like comic,
You
when you get
caught me. I think you accused me of
Pretending.
pretending.
I did, because I've seen, because it's very like, when
Yeah,
you're talking to your ex and you're like, the new boyfriend's name is Steve,
Yeah.
and you're like, how's Sammy doing?
It's like when
just
my
trying
buddy,
to be dismissive.
my buddy met Karen Culkin at a party. He was like, "You look familiar," but he knew who he was.
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
well-
you got it, but right, and so
I
it's
think I
just-
was like, well,
it's-
your show, Bushwick Harassment. or like-
yeah, Bushwick Baby Cakes. Yeah, Brooklyn Little Crimes. Yeah, it's a very, like, I can't admit that I'm
and you
aware
call
of
me out. You're
anything.
like, you're fucking. Come on,
You know
what the
we
show is.
interact,
Now,
you
in
know
my
what it's
defense,
called.
I may not have fully known, but I was leaning into that.
You were leaning into
I was leaning into
which,
it.
again, people have done.
But in my
And
defense, I don't think I was fully remember the show, which is not a good defense. I'm saying, but I think I was like, there was a bit of a mystery. I leaned into
no,
it.
but I know other people have done it. But
anyway.
I called you out because I know you would cop to it. You
I
know
would
what I
cop- of
mean?
course, I always
Yes,
cop.
And other people will be like, no,
I
whatever.
apologize because it makes it's easier to get out of arguments.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
understand
no, I
why
know.
people don't apologize. Like, don't
I
you know you
agree.
can just get
I
out of the argument?
Totally agree.
Being against an apology is like being against the emergency exit on like a plane. I'm
That's
like,
very funny.
just
Yeah.
just you get
Just
out.
say it.
Yeah.
I've said this. You don't even have to mean it.
Never.
You can just. It's like saying you love somebody. You don't have to mean it.
No,
You
no.
just say it.
It's
to
just a getting
grease
out
the
of
wheels.
the fucking to me, like not saying sorry. It's like, why are you making
Crazy.
things so difficult?
I think stubbornness is for just complete idiots. Just apologize.
Yeah.
I think I feel like I've apologized for most things I've done.
Yeah, I mean, I just apologize. Just like, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's move on. And then they're mad because they want to talk about it more. I'm like, too late.
You know what a strategy is? If you think somebody else has wronged you, I've done this. Is it recording? Or
Yeah,
we
yeah.
just
I
been
think,
going
no,
for
no,
nothing?
it's good. No, it's good.
Okay. If you think somebody else has wronged you, I can't, what's going on?
Well, you press record, right, on this? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, we're good. Yeah. Yeah, all right, we're good. Sorry. I really ruined the momentum here.
That's fine. I was aware. I just wanted to address whatever it was.
I always worry about it, but we're
And
good.
then-
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
okay.
So what were you saying? Williamsburg misconduct playing on Peacock right now.
Showtime / Paramount, whatever. Flatbush Misdemeanors. Okay. No, what I was saying. We were talking about apologizing.
Yeah.
If you think somebody owes you an apology, this is one thing that I've done is you apologize to them. They're a little disarmed by it, and then they own up to it also. You know?
I'm sorry for if I was behaving rudely when
yes,
you
when you were
deeply insulted
when
me.
you were like you were like a complete dick.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I didn't know how to handle that.
I'm
Except
sorry if I got emotional when you
cut
cut me to my soul
when
with
you
your
were a
callous behavior.
fucking pathological sociopath.
That's a good. That's good. Yeah.
Throw a curveball.
Yeah. To me, it's just like when people are like, he's a piece of shit. He doesn't. It is true. Like if someone's unapologetic, that is typically like, well, that's an asshole. They're not
Totally.
You're someone like, I'm unapologetic. You mean you don't ever take accountability?
Yeah.
But I will say, I don't even know if you're an asshole. I think you're crazy because it's not. I guess the point I'm trying to make is it is in your self-interest, your selfish, manipulative self-interest to apologize.
Right.
That is a benefit to,
But it's some like allergy to even owning for a moment that you might have been wrong.
Right, but I'm
can't-
just like, you don't have to mean it.
But also,
I think these psychos are like, I think Donald Trump's like, I want to say Donald Trump, you don't have to mean you're sorry.
right, but you can't because it's like even for a moment, it's
I
need
know.
to pretend you have this perfect record. It's
I
really
guess,
bizarre.
It's weird. I guess I'm like a psycho. I'm like, hey, we can do this. We just don't. Like, you don't have to invest anything. You can just lie. It's a weird thing. Trump lies about everything, but he won't say sorry.
That's true.
Can't you lie about that?
That's maybe if you frame it to him that way, then it becomes more appealing. You know?
Trump just the most ethical person ever, where he's like, I can't say sorry unless I really mean it, which is a guideline no one follows, but for him,
no, he's the George Washington of one thing. He cannot say I'm sorry. Yeah, he cannot tell a lie. He's not sorry.
It is
That's
true,
the
though.
only thing he can't lie about.
If you could only say sorry when you felt bad, there wouldn't be as many sorries.
Sure, yeah.
There'd be a couple. But anyway, what is the Flatbush Mystery? I got it wrong, and you were like, you called me out.
Yeah.
But then a couple years later, you got it. It was on Showtime, so you won.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was gonna win that one.
You won. Yeah, you won that. Because it's like you're like you'll remember it once I see fucking posters everywhere.
Yes, I was like, aim the billboards. Can we get into a story? No, I know it's Brooklyn, but let's just get it. I'll send you some.
I saw that one poster on my subway. It said Flatbush Misdemeanors, not Bushwick misconduct, you fucking asshole.
Well, do you see the fuck off Raanan?
I've been
sign?
seeing it.
Yeah, I
it's
aimed it. I
aggressive.
was like, aim that at the apartment.
I remember you had that giant thing all over that.
Barclays?
Yeah, that was
Atlantic
crazy.
Terminal? Yeah, that was crazy, yeah.
We would drive by it every night.
Right.
Because I'd take the Uber to Brooklyn with, Jordan,
with your spray paint. Yeah. So,
But that was
try to
big. Yeah.
vandalize.
Do you see, when you see posters, have you seen the vandalized posters?
I don't know if I've seen any in person, but I've asked people to send me any vandalized ones, and that's fun to me.
Do you feel like you have to support it because it's a gritty show, so you would be
No.
for
I think
graffiti?
it's fun. I mean, because I grew up in the city, and so
Yeah.
seeing like somebody draw like a dick on your
Right.
face, or just because that's what it is. It's like you're in somebody's face,
Right.
And they're like, "Fuck you! I didn't ask to look at you."
But what if they
And
drew payas on you and said Jew? How would you feel about that?
Again, I think all the vandalism is like funny, and there hasn't been as much. But whenever someone said like, "Oh, I was like, you got to send me a photo next time you see it," because it is funny to me,
Yeah, of course
But
it
that
can
one,
be.
the Barclays one, you can't vandalize.
I mean,
it's too high.
A person
up.
really would have to hate that show.
And honestly, they've earned it. If they can, if they'll climb up and set up a ladder and like have a lookout guy, like they've totally earned it. And I would
if that's
suggest
their level of political activism, not Trump or just like we're gonna fuck.
If they're that committed to just like
we got
over my face.
For them, The Man is an underrated show on
Showtime.
Showtime.
In my mouth, I'm like, okay, they've earned it.
So I want to talk about the episode. Since we're talking about movies, we'll talk about some other movies too. But I want to talk. It's a TV show, but you directed it, and I'm interested in directing. I directed a sketch recently. It's very hard.
I'm excited to see it. Yeah,
I wrote a sketch. I directed a sketch spoofing Schindler's List.
Right.
Very relevant. Spoofing Schindler's List, and it made me think it was so hard just making the sketch.
Yes.
Now I'm like, imagine how hard it would be to make Schindler's List. And then I thought even further, like, imagine how hard it is to organize the Holocaust. Like, that took a lot. Like, everything. No,
I know.
Everything just, I just started.
No, you don't even understand. The directing that Hitler did, he was really one of the.
Well, everyone's like a Holocaust, but it did. I mean, it did take a lot of organization. I just think sometimes
100%.
that,
but you got to assume Hitler's not doing the micro data. He's big picture stuff.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
He's got his line producer. He's got his AD.
Yeah, you got everyone. Yeah, you got all the people. That's true, and I don't. I was just.
He's not doing call times.
So you're saying it's equal to just one person on a sketch? You think Spielberg on Schindler's List is equal to me? Well, I had a co-director.
When did I say equal?
Well, you're
I didn't say anything even close to that.
Well, you're saying Hitler had a lot of
you
help.
really heard what you wanted to hear there.
You're saying Hitler had a lot
I was talking about Hitler having like a crew, and you're like, right, so you're saying I'm kind of Spielberg, right? And I'm like, it's
no,
not
I'm just
even
saying I didn't have. I thought you were saying because they had a lot of help, and I didn't, so it's equal. That's what. No.
Oh no. I was just saying we can't credit him fully with everything.
Yeah,
that he had people on the ground.
That's a good point. I read a lot of biographies.
Believe it or not, that anecdote. It wasn't even about you.
Your anecdote about Hitler wasn't about me?
It's not even connected. Yeah.
I will say I read a lot of biographies on Hitler.
Yeah.
It's a problem / hobby.
Yeah.
You start you read enough, you start seeing qualities where you're like, I kind of like this guy. Like just little moments.
Yeah.
Like I read today, he said he would always walk. He had to walk a day, but he hated exercise. So it would always be downhill, and there'd be a car waiting at the bottom to drive him back up. And I'm like, that's my kind of guy.
Yeah. It's surprisingly lazy for a guy who invaded Poland.
Well, he was actually very lazy.
Yeah.
People don't talk about this much because it gets overshadowed by his other
work.
It's hard to be like he killed 6 million Jews, and he was quite lazy.
Yeah. I used to do a joke about a Hitler biography. Did I
really?
tell you this? Did I ever tell you
No,
this?
what was your joke? I have 400.
I was in the. Let me see if I can remember it. I was in the bookstore, and I saw there was a book about Hitler biography. It was the unauthorized biography of Hitler, which seems funny because it's like saying well, he killed Jews and invaded nations and led a mass genocide, but there's some shit he didn't want you to know. There's some things.
This is going to get into the dark side of Auschwitz. Yeah.
It's just what could it have been that Hitler's estate was like, oh, don't print that.
We're not comfortable with that. But for them, they'd be like, we don't like that part where he said hi to a Jew. Can we cut that out?
He was bar mitzvah. You can't.
My favorite biography I saw in the bookstore is there was that book about Lincoln called Team of Rivals.
Yeah.
And then after the movie came out, they issued another copy, so it was in the bookstore. But the cover, if you look closely, was just Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, they love doing
Lincoln,
that.
But it's like
they love doing that.
Like, come on, we already.
They love doing that.
I just started thinking if Lincoln came back in time, he thought, ooh, a biography. He's like, who the fuck is that?
They love doing that with movies. Yeah,
this Lincoln biography stars Daniel Day-Lewis.
It's like reissue Cuckoo's Nest, Nicholson.
But it's weird when it's a historical figure. It's just it's just bizarre. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll be they'll reissue the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yeah,
and they have Denzel.
Yeah. Jamie Foxx on the Ray biography. It is a little bizarre, but I get it. Lincoln was ugly. You got to sell books.
You got to sell books.
You got to sell.
Nobody's buying a book. You got to put some pretty people there.
You got to sell books. Yeah. But so. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. So Hitler biography, direct. I don't know how we got on this, but
directing. You were saying you directed a sketch. Schindler's List.
So it's very hard.
Yes.
And so I'm interested. You directed your first episode in the second season.
Yes.
And I just watched this great episode.
Thanks, man.
Really great. My favorite part in it, you always have these little moments that I perfectly capture little things. My favorite moment or one of them is when you. This is gonna look suspicious, like I didn't finish it because it's the first 12 seconds, but I did. I did watch the whole thing. I promise. But the moment where you agree to make the cake and you have a look to kind of the sky where you're like, I don't know how to make this cake.
Yeah,
and I thought that was a great little moment. It's very subtle.
Yeah.
But it's also an amazing moment where like the audience knows exactly what you're thinking right now.
Right.
Which is really like a pretty awesome. Were you worried at all if that was going to read or not? It totally read it. I laughed out loud. But were you like?
No, I had a feeling. I knew
because it's a subtle moment. You're like.
So in the episode, I'll just give it away. You guys aren't going to watch it, but like I'll just
Sixth Sense.
Yeah. That's all. I'll tell you everything that happens.
Yeah.
You can still enjoy some jokes.
Fucking
Yeah.
Fight Club. Yeah.
So my character's in.
Spoiler alert, both of them grow a little during the show.
Boy, do they get into some adventures.
Yeah. They become a little emotionally less dependent on each other. Big split.
So,
spoiler alert, Kevin becomes more communicative.
We never quite got there.
Yeah, but of course, yeah.
But my character loves Xanax, so he's in NA, and I'm hitting on. I have a love interest played by Alyssa Limperis.
Great actress.
Great actress, great comedian. Has a special on Peacock.
Mostly known for doing a reading of a screenplay I wrote.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot of buzz on set about that. Like that table read.
Anyway,
private Zoom. But yeah, so I'm. It's her 1 year sober anniversary, and I'm like, oh, and she's gonna ask me to share, and then and I'm like, oh, what do I do? Do I bake a cake? And she's like, do you bake? And then I feel pressured, and I say, yes, I bake, but I'm pretending I don't know how to bake. My character can't do anything. No, I wasn't really worried about that reading because I feel like if I can convey anything as an actor, it's like cluelessness. You know what I mean?
But it's a very subtle look because the audience doesn't know for sure.
Right.
I mean, they assume you don't know how to do anything. But there's not like a clear, like, you don't know how to bake a cake. So, and the look isn't like, it's not like, oh boy. It's like, the look is like, it's more like you're thinking of something.
Yeah.
But what you're clearly thinking of is that you don't know how to bake a cake. It's just a very interesting look. It's great acting because you don't you don't play the. It's a great. It's perfect.
Much, I mean, I figure. I mean, we did a couple takes of it. I was, the toughest part of directing that episode was I was writhing in pain with kidney stones.
Oh, really?
All those NA scenes in that scene and the other scenes in that episode where I'm doing the share. I'm in just I was literally. That scene, I was in the ER that entire night, and they took me to set from the ER in the morning.
Wow. So in that scene, you're just in like terrible
anguish.
Pain. I've had kidney stones too. It's awful. Yeah.
Awful. Yeah.
I used to say on stage to describe it, imagine pregnancy hurting as much as women pretend it does. It didn't go over well. I still think it's funny.
It's a good joke.
Yeah.
But no, so but fortunately my character is never really killing it in life. He's always like he always looks like he's a little kind of pain. Yeah. So it was fine. But no, I mean we did a couple takes of it, and I thought if it doesn't work, sometimes it misses, and then it's fine.
Well, it's great. I love your subtle moments. They're always so you make me laugh out loud on the show. It's so
thanks,
funny.
Man.
And list is great.
Great.
There's so many great lines. I mean, I'm a writer. I'm a writing guy.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the line when I'm sorry, terrible at names.
That's fine.
But your stepdad,
Kareem.
Yeah. I really should know it since it's his actual name in real life.
It's all the same. My name is all over the thing, and people are still like the white guy. Like
it's your name.
It's my name in the credits. I'm all over the credits, and they're still white guy.
Yeah, you thought someone called your character the wrong name, even though they knew you, and you have the right name, and so it's your name. Someone.
I did a show, and the host was like, "Have you guys seen Flatbush Misdemeanors?" And someone was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Do you know Dan?" And she was like, "Hmm." And like, "Well, maybe you'll see." And they brought me up, and I was like, "Do you recognize me now?" And she was like, I'm bad with names.
But I will say, in general, names. I have a really good memory for movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've always had a bad memory for names of characters.
I don't care about character names.
I know. I think they're hard to remember.
I don't. And some people love writing it and consider what to name the person.
Yeah.
I never put.
Well, I can see by the clearly naming them after the. Really, you're not into names? Having actors named Dan, Kevin, and Kareem.
I don't even remember. Like Alyssa's character is named Sydney. I don't remember. Somebody in the writers' room suggested that, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll change that, and I just never did. It doesn't matter.
Well, I always
to
thought
me.
Woody Allen with his movies, one of the hardest things, he had to think of a different name for himself every.
And then he's the same guy.
He's the same guy. Yeah, he just
Like, what are we doing?
But it's so tough to have to think of like a Jewy writer name over and over and over again.
I feel like if he could do anything,
the easier part of it.
I think that'll be
not his biggest
he
challenge.
Gets older,
His biggest challenge was marrying his daughter.
And even that surprisingly easy for him.
Yeah, well, that worked out well. Yeah.
Yeah.
You sent me this picture once. God, we're all over the place. But you sent me this picture once. It was Woody Allen's family. You're like, it really made me see how much of a creep he is. It's fucked up. I guess I didn't need to. Like I had this. It was like a picture of him and his family. You're like, he's been attracted to every woman in this photo.
Oh yeah.
It was like a baby.
It was a photo of Mia, Sunyi, and Dylan as a baby.
Dylan as a baby. Sunyi.
Boy, he's actively attracted to every woman in this photo.
Yeah, he doesn't like to go far for relationships. Just whatever's around.
We're all creatures of comfort in our own ways.
People just really lazy. Is it a lazy thing? And they're like, I gotta fuck, but I don't want to get out of the house.
I would argue it takes more effort. I would argue it's the opposite of laziness in this sort of like concerted effort.
Well, you're here. Dan says incest takes a lot of ambition. But so yeah, okay. So you were in terrible pain that whole time. Oh, the other line I love, Kareem, when you say the book club line.
Oh yeah.
I mean that line when Kareem's like, "I know you're lying." There's no one in their right mind who would ever discuss a book.
Yeah, no man in their right mind
who would ever discuss a book. That's great.
Yeah, I'm pretending because I can't admit we're in that.
That's a great moment. Yeah, he's so funny. He's
Kareem Green. Yeah, he's really good in that show, and I was really happy with his performance in that episode, and I was like particularly proud, like because I was working with him in the scene, and. It's like different. I mean, it's obviously different what makes everybody comfortable, and it's different what makes comics comfortable, especially where like, for comics, it's like, especially comics like him or like Yamanika or whatever, they like need to feel comfortable. And if the script supervisor or somebody comes in with like, with the script, they know they've messed up. You know what I mean? Right. But if they feel like they're doing well and have some freedom, then they're just going to be better and remember it better and feed off like the
you're saying
energy.
Like, it was a bad idea when I told Broussard on the set, do the accent better. Like that got in his head a little.
Everyone has their methods, Kubrick had his way, and it got The Shining, Yes, Shelley
like,
Duvall's in a mental institution, but...
Well, yeah, she was going to go there anyway.
Everyone has their ways of doing things.
So when before directing on TV, did you direct, you were a writer, so you were not involved in the directing at all, right? Or
no, but so how it works in TV when... Like, so TV directing, which I've now learned, is very different than feature directing. So when you're directing a movie, like the director is making those calls. In TV, it is way more like machine-like in terms of there's a system, and the director is usually. I mean, you look at a TV show, and most of them, the directors just kind of filter in and out.
Yes.
You see somebody directed 3 episodes, then somebody else directs 2 episodes, and that's how we did it. So. The people who are here the whole time are like me and the other executive producers and the DP and the, really every department is there through the season, and the directors are the ones just coming in.
It's like a substitute teacher.
A little bit. And so it's like they're coming in, and so the director can give their notes, and then, but then we run notes to the director, and the director runs them in to the actors, that's the sort of...
The director does not have the auteur control on TV.
No.
They can't come in there and be like, we're changing this whole thing.
I mean, they can, but everyone's going to hate them.
Yeah, and there's a pretty strict... They're kind of working within a kind of strict system.
Yeah, because there's time... Like, we have to get the thing done. We have to get it done in 3 days, 4 days, whatever.
Right, right.
And so there's a lot of stuff where it's like, okay, like, you could waste resources on like and time on like we need to get this like crazy overhead shot that's going to take hours, but at a certain point it's like we just have to move. We got to get 3 scenes done that day or shoot 10 pages in a day or whatever it is. So you just have to like move a little bit. And in a way that's good because then you figure out how to be creative within that sort of efficiency. So like a lot of the best like TV directors, you realize like they're not necessarily people who I might want to direct a feature. And maybe somebody who I think is incredibly talented, who I would watch any feature they made, they might not be the best in that setting. You know? It's people who know how to get a lot of coverage really quick, who know how to like, who understand the jokes. That's the biggest thing. Right. Is like you have to, for a comedy, just like you're getting the jokes on paper and you know how to bring them out and you know how to make the performers comfortable. Right. And it's not, and so the ones where I've seen like, the ones that have worked the best for us that have come in from the outside are like ones that just like they're focused on the performances and the jokes, and that's the top priority, and the tone, and checking with the EPs and stuff on like, am I staying within the tone, or what did you intend by this or that? And then they all have their own personal like ways of doing this or that, which is cool and totally
it's good. Almost like kind of like a writer for a TV show who's like writing in the voice of someone. He's directing in the voice of the TV show already.
Yeah, and they have their own like because the thing's been built. You know what I mean? So they're coming in, and so it you could steer it like a few degrees here and a few degrees there, and put your own personal.
And I've seen that, like Sopranos. One of the episodes was directed by forget his name, the guy who directed Leaving Las Vegas. And he does some goofy shots, just kind of like artsy shots. You're like, that wouldn't normally happen, but he had to put his like spin on it. You know what I mean? So I've seen that before, but it is a little awkward when they do that, when you kind of put like that.
And again, it's like sometimes somebody will come in with an idea, and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool idea. Like like there are just certain shots where people are like, oh, we could do this as a oneer and just like have one shot throughout a scene, like in a way where like, oh, I'm not thinking about that, because I don't have to direct that one, so I'm not thinking about that
but
at all.
Do you ever feel like I felt this was? I mean, it's very different, but it was my comedy special.
It
was Matt Salek who's directed. He did a great job, but there are times where I'm like, he may want something artsier, and I'm always like, no. The comedy is the main focus.
Of course.
And did you ever feel like you had to fight that? Like a director or someone would be like, let's go for this thing that's a little artsier or cooler. You're like, no. It distracts from the comedy.
Or not even necessarily like artsier and cooler. But yeah, there's just a difference in like focus, Yeah. Like there was one scene where, I'll be vague about because I don't want to give away who it was, but a character and I were entering a scene, and the character was talking with the actor and had them improv a line that I thought was so funny, and great, and the director was like, "Oh, when you said that line, like, you both missed your mark by a step, so maybe it's going to be tough to do the line and land on the mark, so maybe we just don't say the line." And I had to find a nice way of saying, like, hey, who gives a fuck about the mark? Let's move the tape. Let's, you know what I mean?
So you do ultimately, as a creator, have final say in those situations?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, with the other, like, EPs and stuff. So you have a say over the director, but it's just finding a way to do it in a way that's, like, appropriate and stuff. But yeah, you run into that stuff, and then there are certain things you run into of like, I don't know how much to fight this, or I don't know how much to whatever. But it's good to be there and to feel like you can talk through certain things because they're reading the script, but they're not necessarily thinking like, hey, what's important is not that he comes all the way over here. Right. What's important is that like he has not fully entered the space yet until this thing happens.
But it's like. That's interesting. But I'm realizing with your show, it is interesting because, like, on if a director's making a movie, provided, I notice a lot of times, like, if the star is famous, he can kind of run the show a lot of times.
Sure.
But let's say, for the most part, a director on a movie kind of has final say, final vision.
Yeah.
But with a show, you have a lot of different voices at the same time.
For sure.
Because you have the director, the EP.
Yeah.
Was that a hard thing to manage if you, like... I guess that's what you're saying. You have to pick your battles.
You got to pick your battles, but also it's like, so, how it works with shows, it's like, unless, you're doing everything, it's like, the editor does a cut and then the director does a cut and then it goes to, and then the director's job is done generally. once the director's cut goes to producers, and then we give a cut, and then it goes to studio and network. So we give notes on the cut and the edit after the director does. So what was cool about directing was that just streamlined the whole process. And the editor was a guy, my friend Daniel Johnson, who I've known for years. I've lived with him for years. I went to school with him. Like, I've known him forever. And so we have a shorthand already. And so I could work with him from the jump and know it was going to be, it just saved time. It was going to be in a stronger place where I know we need to be sooner. Right. Because you're
no
just...
middleman,
Right. You just can get there.
Well, let me ask you this. Because I want to direct, but I'm always daunted. I feel like the most daunting thing as a director is when you're directing, someone comes up to you and says, which shoe should we put in the corner of the screen? And they hold two shoes, and then you have to pretend like you know and go, definitely the left one.
No,
how do you deal with that?
That stuff is easy.
What do you do? What's the secret?
Well, you say the stuff you care about, and then the stuff you don't care about, you're like, either way, it's fine.
Either way, it's fine?
Yeah.
You're allowed to say either way, it's fine? That doesn't show weakness?
Weakness? What are you trying to... What?
You don't bring a prison mentality on set? Well, I always thought you have to look like you know every moment. Like, of course, the blue slipper.
No, that's the biggest thing. That was the biggest reassurance, and that's what I was scared about.
Yeah.
Not just with directing, but with doing the show altogether. Because, I'm going into, like, you're meeting with all these department heads of, like, production design and costume and hair and set deck and all these different things. And music. And, and so there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. And so just realizing, like, I can just express, like, this is how I want it to feel. This is what's important. And then you just talk that out with a person, And so there were times, like, I remember the first season, the production designer came up to me, and they were making, like, Kareem and Maria's house. Maria Bamford plays my mom, and they were making the house where her and Kareem live. And initially it was like, Kareem's a big personality, so it was like, maybe like a man cave kind of thing is what the product designer was thinking. And then I was talking with her, and I was like, no, I think, like, it's funnier if Kareem, who's this big, like, personality or whatever, instead has just, like, freed Maria to be totally herself. And so they're living this very domesticated life where it's a lot of live, laugh, love shit and just corny. It's just, like, over the top domesticated.
It's not what you're thinking.
Right. It's like, that's weird. And that's, like, funnier that he's in that environment, and that this, like, domestic bliss is funnier and, like, cooler for her also.
Because the interior decorator or the interior designer or the
production designer and
they're not always thinking comedically.
No.
Yeah, but if it's a comedy, it's kind of sometimes honestly, for most things, you want something that it's not what you'd expect.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And,
at least definitely with comedy.
And some product designers, like, and then some in every department are funny. And that's the hardest thing that I've found is, like, and the most valuable thing when you do find it is people in any department who it's like they're not just good at their job but also funny.
Yeah.
They'll make everything better.
And the thing is, like, I do think what's so amazing about film or TV or anything is, like, people really forget how much intention is involved in every little thing. From art decoration to fucking costumes to fashion.
Yeah.
There's so much intention.
Right.
Not just, I think a lot of people who don't know about movie making or anything just think, like, someone just makes a suit. No.
Right.
Like, the fashion designer on a set thinks about what it means.
Yeah.
Especially...
well, that's... Yeah, they break down the script. And so you break down the script, you're thinking about... It's not just about, like, that's a cool shirt.
Yeah.
It's like, where is this person in their life, in their day, in their week? Like, what is going on? Like, what is the logic behind it?
So everyone on the even if you think of it as a technical job, every job is creative on some level and and interpretive.
Totally.
You have to interpret the themes of the script into every little moment, all the way to the fucking books on the shelf.
Right.
And people don't realize that, I think, a lot of times.
No, I know. And that's what's like, I think people think of those jobs, like you just said, as, like, technical jobs when it's like, I've met insanely creative people in some of these departments.
And that's
I've met, like, props people where I'm like, you're funnier than most comedians.
Right.
Like, you have a sense of what...
That's not that hard, but yeah.
You
set the bar pretty low.
A job that has funny people.
You're funnier than so many people who can ask what you do for a living.
And some of the least funny people with Asperger's I know. No, but, like, in the first season, the second episode, my character's carrying around a cactus. He gets a cactus for his love interest in the first season.
Great episode.
And they bring me to the room. The guy Joel who did the props the first season, he brought me to the back room, and he's like, "I gotta show you something." He shows me, and there's like, 8 cacti just lined up, and he's like, "They all tell a different story."
I love that.
I love it.
I love it.
It was great.
I love it.
It was so funny.
Because everything. Here's the thing: if you're good at your job, everything's kind of an art.
Yes.
If you really think about your job and intend it,
Yes.
it's all artistic.
Yes, and because you're thinking about it, you're like, oh, that's fun, and it's that little stuff where like, it's just going to enhance the whole thing. It's just going to elevate it all, and I mean that's everything. But I think for some of that stuff, there's a lot of it where I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care at all.
I know,
but
right? But you're allowed to admit that. Or you're okay to admit that.
I'm okay admitting it, and that's what I had to do, because there's certain things I don't know. Like I didn't go to film school, so like all my friends were, but I've been learning as I go. So like I'm not as versed on the like cinematography in terms of the technical aspects of it. So I'm not going to pretend I am to the DP. I'm going to feel like this isn't what I'm trained in. So I know like I want this kind of thing, and then can we do like the first shot of the scene like this and da-da-da. But he knows how to convert that to the language he speaks that I don't speak. Right. You know what I mean?
Just be open about that. Yeah. That is the thing I get daunted about, like with directing, is like just that person rushing up to you. Which tie in the closet? I'm like, I don't know. Who gives a shit?
It's like, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Like you think about it, and then sometimes you're like, oh, actually, it does matter.
It does.
And then you think about it, and you're like, oh, okay. And
art decoration is so important to just like you'll see scenes in a movie, you're like, I don't like how this looks, and then you think it's like the lighting, and then you realize, oh no. It's that there's not enough fucking shit in the scene. It feels like you just filmed it in a fucking storage facility.
Right. You cleared everybody out of this bar, and it feels weird that nobody's here.
Yeah, it feels too empty. So the art decoration adds so much. I know
everything. I mean, all of the like the people who the team that got our extras, like background people, like, which is also fun. Every little aspect of it is fun. So I have fun like. They send you this list of like, just photos of people and like who you want as extras. So we have like, we had NA, like Narcotics Anonymous, and that was fun choosing the different like background people that appear. Because, in a classroom, whatever, they're all going to like be students, they're all going to be similar. But NA, it's like people of all walks of life.
And that's another, exactly.
And that's a fun to get that sort of range in
a variety of different desperation.
Yes, exactly. Different broken people. But it can't all be,
but it has to be broken people from all sorts of shit. Yeah.
Which tracks. It's the one. It's the one setting where that is like an organic diversity that like makes sense. Right. Exactly. Yes. Like that where it's not forced. That's like it's a
true
logical
diversity.
Right. Yes.
Drugs are not racist. No, but that's another thing people don't think about. I mean, when I say people, sometimes I'm like, I don't think about it always. Like a scene with like extras that is specific to somebody. If it's at a bar, maybe you're like, who gives a shit? But like, even that can be like, but like at NA, that's. You can't just be like, get whoever. Then you come in there, it's like 12 hot 22-year-old girls.
right.
You know what I mean? Like you have to have control over all those situations.
Yeah, and some of it's like, all right, but then it's good to see like, I mean, all that little micro stuff is very fun to do. And then finding the little stuff in the moment, the little changes that you have to make is also the most fun. Because that's what we've been doing for years with stand-up is you have some plan, you're going to do this bit, you're going to do this, and then, that would be crazy if I followed script now.
And that's the real thrill. I mean, I feel bad. I'm just talking about a sketch I made, but whatever.
Yeah,
it's all a microcosm.
It's all that was all. I made a bunch of sketches and a short, some like shorts or whatever. But
the thing I did. The thing about it is like the thrill of shit going wrong and you having to adjust. I love that.
Yes.
It's like a relationship. You have this fantasy of what a relationship is, and then you get in one, and it's like
it's like horrible.
It's horrible. Yeah, but you have to adapt, but it's not like a rush because you're under a time pressure. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's when you figure out. I mean, your back's against the wall, so you just have to figure it out.
Yes, and that's where it's like, it's exactly like stand up in that sense, where it's like with stand up, like you always write. It's kind of funny. I was doing this festival last week. It was a great festival, but like I had this whole set, and then I saw the room where I was doing it, and it was this big kind of barish room.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to change all my material. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I'm glad I saw it beforehand because
Right.
you always write in your head if you're thinking you're an hour. You think you're at a theater where everyone's paying attention.
Yeah.
And then I like see the popcorn thing in the back, and I'm like, maybe this nuanced bit about Shakespeare will have to go on the set. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and that's the fun, and that's why I've heard this. Like some writers do this, like these super established, famous writers are like, you can't change a single line. And to me, that feels so crazy because it's just like you get on set and you realize, and I realize this all the time. Like I'll be doing a scene with Alyssa or whatever, and we'll be running it, days before or whatever, and I'll be like, nah, that line's not right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
You hear a person say it, and you're like, no. In the same way, you say a joke on stage.
Of course,
and you're like, that's not right.
You weren't writing it perfectly for the actor, and then when they say it, if the actor's like, I feel better saying it like this, they're probably right.
Yes,
yeah.
that's what wouldn't you?
They're literally saying, this is how I would say it.
Don't you want it to be massaged into their voice? Like, let it.
Or they're like, should I do that,
better.
or should I look like kind of bad acting? Because it's not. No, I don't get. I mean, I guess. Look, I'm sure for some, right, like Tarantino or people who have a certain kind of style. I guess it depends on the style. You're having a pretty realistic.
Yeah.
Style.
No, this is just. I'm only speaking for.
But anything with any sense of like realism.
Yeah.
I do feel like throw a little improv in there. You know what I mean?
And not even if you don't. I mean, I'm okay if people like veer a little. I think that's like fun, but even if it's just like, if you're conveying the emotional truth of the line and getting the meaning across, it's like, if you change some words that make it feel more organic, then like.
Well, I feel like that's something with Scorsese that everyone talks so much about Scorsese's shots, his music, but the thing they don't always talk about is that his relationship to actors and improv has always been pretty amazing.
Right.
He's always created a level of naturalism that you see all the way up to Irishman, where he clearly is improvising certain scenes, and there's stumbliness, there's an awkwardness, and that's something he has over like a lot of the other great directors at the time. He allows it. Like Raging Bull is like literally like an improv workshop. I mean, a disturbing improv workshop, but it's like so much improvised dialogue, and that is an important part. Do you incorporate a lot of do we film the scene and then improvise the scene kind of a little?
Yes, we'll get it as scripted first, but then yeah. I mean, it depends on like because certain actors and characters like pair really well together.
So the opening scene with you and Alyssa felt a little improvised in a good way.
Yes. So Alyssa and I, we would
seem like you have good chemistry. Yeah.
We have very good chemistry, and I feel very comfortable with her, and so. So that one, a good amount of scenes with Alyssa and I, we would do like cross coverage. So we would so that way you don't have to match the improv when you turn it around. You're just getting both sides.
You're shooting both sides.
You're shooting both sides initially, which it like limits the number of like, or the angles you can get while you do it.
Without the camera being
there. So, but the advantage is you get that. So that's what we did for a good amount of scenes between her and I. Now, with scenes that maybe that I would have with Kristen or with Kareem, we don't do that, and you just get it. You get my side, and you go over to him, and so
Kareem's never going to say the same thing twice.
Well, sure, but if he does, I can like match it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, but yeah, that's fun. That's another thing where it's tough to. If you're just coming in on episode 7 and you don't know all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why it's like, they do work going in.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's something I like. It's so funny because like I've always loved movies, I always wanted to direct, but I know so little. I always read screenplays, so screenplays are in this cocoon of fantasy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's a beautiful fantasy.
Sure.
And it's great. It's fun. But the minute you have to deal with the compromise of reality, it's upsetting. But what I didn't realize until recently is that it's also a thrill.
Totally.
Which, but I remember we filmed Lex. We filmed our first sketch a year ago, and I remember this is how I've watched movies my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm admitting this and it's an embarrassing admittance or admission or whatever. But I realized, like, with most things, you're not getting cross coverage.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I always thought, like, most things, you get both angles.
Right.
And now I'm realizing, every film, I literally had, it's so embarrassing. I'm saying it's embarrassing.
No, I don't think. I mean, you don't think about it.
You don't think about it, but most film, and one could say this is maybe the magic of film, most film, when two people are acting, unless it's a wide shot, they were not responding to those. That was not a reaction to the line they just said.
That's right. You've heard it here first. There's editing. There's editing in movies.
But what's an interesting thing that you like? It's not like.
No, but that is
the magic of film,
the magic of it, and also that's a cool thing because, and then it's strategy of like, okay, this person does better when they're like a little warmed up, and then they can get into it. This person is ready instantly, and you can just knock that out and get that out of the way. Like
people are different, but there is.
Yeah,
I guess I do think like there's clearly cross coverage. I guess I assume there's always cross coverage in improv, and that's not even true in improvised things.
No, but it makes it. It really just case by case, and there's the only ones I could think where it's like, that was always much better when we did that was. Me and Alyssa a good amount, and then me and Yamanika, because Yamanika's going to say shit that's so funny, and so we had her in 2 episodes in this season. So Yamanika Saunders plays my therapist, who just berates me. Yeah. She just screams at me, and because she's like, "You're boring. I'm over this. Like, can you just fix yourself already?" Which is way funnier than whatever we have scripted, you know.
Right.
And so we did the sort of cross coverage in the first episode where she and I are in the same room, and then in this 10th episode. Where she's in it also, we had to do it over Zoom, and so we couldn't shoot it at the same time. And so
why'd you have to do it over Zoom again?
It's just like the
scheduling conflict, or
well, it was like the circumstance of the story. Like I found a way to have her show up at my apartment in the story in the first episode that made sense because you have to confine it to sets and whatever. And so I was like, "Oh, thank you for doing a home visit, Dr. Flowers." And she was like, "Oh yeah, no, something's wrong with my Zelle, so I got to collect in person." And I don't want you to know where I live or work.
I remember.
Which is what it seemed. I was like, why would she show up here? But then when I thought of that joke, it's like, oh, she doesn't even like me enough to tell me where she works. That's so funny. That she hates me that much.
Which is a fun part of writing is I feel like if you put yourself in a corner where you're like, how do I solve this? Problem, but then the solution is more interesting.
It's just fun.
It forces you a creative solution on a practicality,
right? And it's fun. It's just a way to come up with another joke. This logistical block let us find a new joke in there,
right?
You know?
Right, yeah. Which is
way more fun, and that's why it's.
So you did cross coverage for that, or you're saying
for the scene where she and I are in the same room because she's going off and saying all this, funny shit. And so you just want to get my response to it so it makes sense. But in the one where we're both over Zoom, we had to shoot it separately, and that was tougher because it was just tougher in the edit, and it wasn't as strong as that first one where we could just be playing off each other in the moment. You know?
Yeah, you're on Zoom.
Because she's doing, we're not even, we shot her thing first, then we shot mine like later that day or a different day even. So
but who, like when you were acting, so when you're acting in that scene, how do you what's your prompt? Do they play her footage or do you have a prompt? Or
we'll have the, usually the assistant director will be reading the lines off camera.
Do they do it in a black voice?
No. No, they do it in a Chinese voice.
It's hard to get a prompt.
Spice it up.
Do you feel like with screenwriting, I find this to be a challenge more and more in modern society, that because visually it's always much more interesting for people to meet up and have a conversation.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're like, they would just text us. Do you ever find a challenge where like there's not a good reason for them to meet up right now, or no?
I mean, I don't know.
You have to justify it more a little now than you used to.
I guess. But in my head, it's like we have a fair amount of people just knocking on front doors. You know what I mean?
Your show is it's a Brooklyn hang show, so it's a little different. Yeah.
It's just like I don't know. When I'm me personally, when I'm watching a show, if it's funny, I forgive every sort of logic bump. Everything where I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. If it's funny, I don't care.
Okay, yeah.
That's just how I
feel. Yeah,
that's my. I never watched The Office, and I'm like, why wouldn't they fire Steve Carell?
Right.
I'm just like, oh, he's really funny. You know what I mean? You just like watch it from that lens, and so I think when I have those bumps, it's when the thing is taking itself very seriously.
Right.
Then I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because they're taking the world so seriously.
But as long as you play it lighthearted, people
as
are
long as
more
you play it
forgiving,
light, for me, that's what it's like. So in that episode you're talking about, like Drew gets sent to Kareem. Kareem finds out I'm in NA, and I'm like, you can't tell people I'm in the program. It's a secret.
Yeah.
It's anonymous. And he's like, I got you. And then Drew comes in, and he's like, man, I got to join a drug program.
Right.
And Kareem's like, a drug program? He's like, do you know one? And he's like, yeah, but I can't tell you who's in it. It's anonymous, and I'm sworn to secrecy. It's like, okay, this is an absurd thing to get Drew into my character's world again and have that, like, oh, shit, coincidence, whatever.
Right.
But because it's funny and I'm laughing at Kareem splitting hairs, well, I can't tell you who's in the program. He's like, well, just tell me the address and where it is. It's like, you're like, fine.
That's the interesting tone of the show. It has a Curb plotting with kind of a more realistic kind of like setting.
Yeah, I mean, I love that Curb shit of when it would organically weave together, in these
was that a
surprising
big influence, Curb? I mean,
for sure, yeah. I mean, well, it's like. Because that's the most fun.
I call it Black Curb. I call it Blurb. I call your show Blurb.
It's weird that hasn't caught on. You've been hashtagging it every day. It's fun to. That's the fun to me is to like interconnect.
Yeah.
Because also those are my favorite shows. It's where you just get the characters together. You know what I mean?
Yes, of course.
Like Succession. Do you watch Succession?
Yeah, I love Succession.
I love Succession. My favorite. I was talking to my friend who works on that show. I was saying my favorite thing about it is like, it's any excuse to get the characters together.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Most episodes are like a new setting with
the
those
board
characters.
meeting.
Yeah.
It's the wedding. It's the anniversary. It's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, similar to Veep.
Yeah,
kinda.
It doesn't matter. Get them in a room and have these people who love and hate each other just like ram into each other, and that's
the exciting part.
That's the fun of it. Yeah.
Yeah, different people, different types of people with each other.
Yes.
Kareem as your stepdad.
Kareem is my stepdad. Roy Wood Jr. as the principal.
Yeah.
Yamanika is my therapist, or Bamford is my mom. Like, it's just want to see that sort of, a weird mixture just stir up.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a cool thing, and it's such a fun show to watch, and it has its own unique tone. It's Curb meets The Wire, and
Hey Arnold was the biggest influence for it.
Hey Arnold,
you ever see that?
Which Hey? Well, I don't really know that show.
It was a Nickelodeon. You know, right? It was a '90s cartoon. It was an animated show on Nickelodeon.
Oh, but it wasn't actually an influencer joke.
No, it was. Because with that show, it was a city. You don't know what city, but it was like Arnold was the character at the center.
Right.
But you didn't really. He was kind of whatever. Like, he wasn't the center of it.
Right.
Or not all stories involved him. It would sometimes go to these other characters.
Right.
And like the Christmas special of the show, in one of the early episodes, they have like, because he lives in a boarding house, and they have like a Vietnamese neighbor. They just like make fun of his accent, Mr. Wynn, and he just talks funny.
The good old days.
Yeah, it was the '90s. You're like, Vietnamese. That's not how people talk. Whatever. It was like crazy. But then the Christmas special, it wasn't even about, they just go deep into this character's story. It was like a one-note joke, and they do this full storyline about, he had a daughter who he had to leave behind, or that he gave away because he had to stay in Vietnam, and he wanted a better life for her, and he's trying to like reunite with her. And it's like, what the fuck is this? And it so decentered the main guy.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, you could just have more stories that way.
So you're in the center, but all these characters that you can like.
You can kind of orbit. Yeah. You can pan around, the room and find these different people.
Yeah.
And you can.
No, I love that.
Yeah. So it's not like every episode has to be the same. Of like, Kareem climbing through the window or whatever.
Right. So we got the TV influences. I got to ask this just 'cause this is a movie podcast.
Yeah.
What were the movie influences? You would say was Woody Allen an influence? I mean, I assume.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, your first episode, you probably want to hide this now, opens with a Woody Allen snippet.
Oh,
I believe right after a Bill Cosby quote, and
I posted something like this, but every comedian I grew up admiring ended up having a 4-part docuseries made about their crimes. Very.
I know. It's
really
interesting when you're a kid and you're like looking at Bill Cosby and Woody Allen. It's like, you didn't realize you're actually studying true crime. It's like, oh, I guess I'm a criminologist. I thought I was into comedy.
It's like, well, We've been into true crime.
Yeah, we've been in the whole time. Yeah, no, it's but you have a quote from Annie Hall in the beginning.
Oh yeah, in the web series. Yeah,
In the web series.
In the web
show,
series.
yeah.
There was an audio of like, but the quote is the
death.
Brooklyn is not expanding. You know,
Right. Great
it's
line.
Like we're here in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is not expanding,
Yeah.
which just speaks to the sort of
Yes.
like nature of Flatbush, and it's not evolving, but it also is. You know, but anyway,
But it also brings in a certain, there's a lot of like, there's a Jewish quality of the show, a nebbish Woody Allen quality of the show infused in there. You know, what I mean?
you can't
Can't
run away
hide
from that. That's
it's
in
mostly you.
Yeah. You don't think Kareem, the Judaism comes through with Kareem? Yeah, no, that was an influence. Spike Lee, like Do the Right Thing, is one of my favorite movies.
Course, yeah.
Love that. And then I don't know. I feel like more in like as
I was just being a dick when I said The Wire, just pretending to be
cultured.
Pretending to be like a racist idiot. Like I just think anything black is The Wire.
Sure, yeah.
But I was honestly thinking it is kind of Curb meets Do the Right Thing on some level.
I love them. I think that movie is.
Do you like me pitching it so there's no like originality in my? Do you like me after the movie turning it into a pitch?
I think, as long as I don't have to pitch it. Yeah, no, I mean that movie, like I rewatched not long ago, and I still think it's insanely good. That movie.
Oh, it's
there are
great.
a million reasons that movie is so good, but that movie, it first of all, it kind of builds, like it could easily be like vignette-y, and it kind of is for the first like 40 minutes or so, in a way that is kind of like surprising. That it like very gradually zooms in on what is important.
Yes.
In a way that I feel like it would probably be noted to death now of like, well, we gotta, if Sal and Mookie is what matters, then you gotta have that in the first 2 minutes and zoom in on that. It's like
every like original movie didn't follow those like rules.
Yeah, there was some.
Every movie is like a producer go, we can't have the scene in the movie diner where they're just talking. Like every movie somehow breaks.
There was some quote somewhere that was like, every movie has to do this, and this, except all of your favorite movies that did something else.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
But, and then, I don't know. I don't know for influences, but I just know my favorite kind of shit to watch, which is I like a lot of the indie stuff that feels like differently paced or is able to just like find comedy through the like.
And you like a lot of you like a lot of movies that are somewhat quiet and understated, which is funny because that's kind of how you are,
right? and you like a lot of like
loud
like Jewish movies from Kentucky, right?
Yeah, I don't think it works for me. but yeah, so it has that element to the kind of But see what I like, it's similar to something I don't like, but it does it well in this, which is I don't like certain movies that I feel like are flat.
Yeah.
Emotionally, like in the acting.
What's an example?
Like Nomadland.
Okay, sure.
I find that movie to be the dialogue's not interesting. I find it to confuse realism and boringness.
Sure,
and
sure.
When really realism isn't that boring. Realism is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So you have there's some deadpanness in your thing, but it's joke heavy, and also a lot of people are not deadpan.
Right.
It's actually the funny thing about your show is the two main people are deadpan, and everyone else is as loud as they can be. So it's kind of a funny guy. It's literally two dead people, and then orbiting them is Yamanika, Kareem.
But certain people like Hassan, who was in The Wire, who's an amazing
But he's
actor.
He's quite the character.
He's quite the character, but he's not necessarily screaming. He's pretty like within his voice. But yes,
But you are
do
definitely
agree.
the two.
I do agree.
I think that's a good quality.
Agree.
It's like two quiet
I agree
people
with
with
that. Yeah.
very loudness around them.
Yeah, but I think I agree with you about Nomadland. I love The Rider more. Her movie, Chloe Zhao's movie before Nomadland. I thought that was one of the recent movies that made me cry. Like, in the theater. Yeah.
Gee, you cry. My God.
Have you never cried during movies?
Oh, no, I cry all the time in movies. I don't cry in real life. Do you?
In real life? Very hard.
Oh,
No.
really? No, I don't cry. For me in real life, I need to have like not even a grandma die, like a grandma be murdered. Like it would have to be a murder for me to cry. But like,
I would need to see a grandma murdered in a movie.
Yeah,
You know,
but
and
yes,
and
in
then I
movies,
could cry about my dead grandparents previously.
I'm the same way. I cry a lot in movies, but it's not like a sensitive thing. It's a very much emotional, repressed thing.
Of course, yeah.
I'm not like some people cry in movies and real life. Those people suck. But
No,
you know.
that's you see people online of like, why do men like movies so much? And it's like, let us have our gateway to cry.
Yes,
let us get it out.
Gateway, yeah,
100%.
But for me, crying in a movie is like it's not. Some people, the people cry in life when they cry in a movie, it's clearly not the movie that's making them crying as much as the life thing. Like I was on a date once and we saw a movie. I think it was his first Star Trek. Origin.
I like Star Trek. That's honestly a great pitch for a movie.
It was whatever. Star Trek.
Trucks in space is like pretty sick.
Good.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's Star Trek: The Teenage Years or some shit like that or whatever. Fucking when Captain Spock got his fucking bar mitzvah or whatever. And but in the opening scene, it's Kirk visiting his dying grandma. But they've not established the characters.
Sure.
He just comes in and she's dying, and the girl I'm with starts crying. And I'm like, I would never cry without knowing the characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, why are you crying? Apparently she had like a grandma die like the other day. But like, it was just like, that's what I'm saying. She's not like, it's not you're bringing real life into the movie. I don't like that. I want to cry.
Don't like that.
I want to cry because something's
that's not for you to say you like or don't like.
Well,
it's
for me to say. You can say you don't like it.
Sure, I don't like that.
Well, you're free to say that.
Well, no, it's people bring whatever they want into art. That's where it stops. If people watch your sketch and they start sobbing instantly,
right?
That's for them to do.
But I guess
they get to bring whatever they want.
But it's
art.
not a compliment to the art, is what I'm saying.
Yes, I agree.
If you made a movie and someone's crying just because they see like the grandma crying in the first scene,
sure,
the director didn't do it. You could have showed her. You could have showed that dumb bitch a picture of an old woman. You know what I mean? Like it's not like.
Well, that's the bullshit of like most like short films.
Yeah.
Whenever you go see the live action Oscar shorts, like at IFC or whatever, they're all tragic, boring.
But you don't know. Yeah.
You don't care.
You don't care.
You're watching a thing and they're crying because their baby died, and yes, that would be sad to have a baby die.
Yeah.
But I don't know them. I don't know the baby.
Right.
I'm not invested.
Short films I just call not funny sketches.
They're not even. They're trying
sketch
to
without the jokes.
Pack all this tragedy.
Yeah, you can
as much as they can.
That's why sketches are better, or it's funnier if a short film is funny because it's easier to be funny.
Well, that's what helped Flatbush become a show, I think, because it did well at film festivals. We made it as a short,
right?
And it was playing in film festivals where they show it in a block with other short films, and all of the other short films, like almost uniformly, would be incredibly tragic and sad.
I know, yeah.
And then ours was not colored, not mixed.
Right.
A mess, technically. We're borrowing 3 different cameras. Like, it's a mess. But it has jokes in it.
That's jokes, which is easier to attach to.
And you can tell in the room that people are enjoying it.
Yeah.
Or you can't really tell if there's a tragedy, if anybody's enjoying it.
That is the problem with a lot of short films. It's like, you got to be funny. You don't have to be a sketch.
No.
But you got to probably be funny because it's just like, I'm not like... You need you want to know a character first before they die of Alzheimer's.
When it doesn't, right? When it doesn't even take. I cried in Castaway when the volleyball floats away.
Exactly, but you could have just showed that right away and cry.
No, that'd be insane. All right, you lost the volleyball.
you really did establish.
But then
especially with volleyballs, you really have to establish the emotional connection.
Yeah, no. Spielberg said that in his masterclass.
I can't stress enough how a relationship between a man and a volleyball does not work out.
Really has to be earned.
Yeah, it really has to be earned. Otherwise. But so but yes, it is true. So I'm glad. Well, the humor goes a long way in that situation. And but yeah, I also just love Do the Right Thing because different than Nomadland, I feel like certain movies look at poverty as something where everyone's just like depressed.
Right.
But here's the truth about a lot of poverty. It's a lot of suffering, and those people are happier than richer people. It's like worse suffering and more joy.
Well, it's like everything. People are like mad at each other, and they're living too close, and it's hot. And you stepped on my sneakers, and you're like, "Give me my batteries." Like,
right?
Like,
it's a
why
community, but it's not flat. It's like loud.
No, and I think people also mistake like real
with boring,
with boring, or with like put upon sadness.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
and this is a thing that I think it's a very a white liberal way to write a character, a poorer character of like just have a bunch of sad shit happen to them and then have them be really strong and like brave,
right,
and not even say a lot of words, but like
it's not treating them as a human being,
not treating them as a human being, and then it lets us see that and not have to change anything about how we consider the world because they're like, well, they're so strong and brave.
Exactly.
I don't need to reassess anything.
Exactly.
Because wow, they are so everything's good. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I also think sometimes when it's even agenda driven, if it's not looking at them as a human being, it's still like if the agenda
bad.
is to change things.
You
but if
can
it's not
feel it.
looking at the human being as a human being, because the
Right.
truth is, like when you look at someone as a human being, it goes beyond agendas.
100%.
Humanity goes beyond
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like when you and you can tell when you're watching a movie, you can tell, okay, the theme they were trying to make here
Yes.
is that racism is bad, divorce is difficult,
Right.
Immigration needs to be fixed, whatever. And so when you're just forcing that, you're not looking at the person, you're not as invested.
And
it does
yeah.
a disservice because you had the conclusion and then you just forced an experiment
Yes,
to get
yes.
that conclusion.
Which is
rather than like you're testing a thing and you put them through a
Exactly.
situation as small as you can, and then what does that show us?
Which is exactly. I mean, it's the problem with the way people view life now, where they have an ideology and they want to force reality to bend to their ideology. When reality is full of so many contradictions. For instance, from suffering in life, even if it's unfair, can lead to wisdom. Right?
Sure.
But if you put that in a movie, but like, I don't want them to think I'm for poverty, but it's beyond that. But it's like, no, it's beyond that. But that is just the way life is. Suffering can lead to a wisdom that you might not have had, and that so it just goes beyond agenda.
But even so like take Do the Right Thing for example, like the climactic scene of that movie,
yes,
which is I think one of the
awful vandalism at the end. I'm joking.
that's your take on it. But one of the
That
best
sad death of that beautiful window.
of your favorite pizza
My favorite pizza.
but what's so well done about that, it's like one of the best climaxes is like, so they're fighting, Radio Raheem's choking out Sal, and then the cops come in and like, okay, Sal saves, then they choke out Radio Raheem, they kill a guy, right? And so then they throw Radio Raheem in the trunk, they run off, and everybody's mad, right? They're looking at Sal, and all these black people in the neighborhood, they're mad, and they look at Sal, and then Sal says, you do what you got to do. And so in that moment, he's lost them. You know? He's lost them. And that's why Spike then walks over, picks up the trash can, and is going to throw it through the window. Now, what he's doing there, that's, in a way, protecting Sal. Because they're going to fucking kill him.
Right,
if
right.
not
Interesting.
for that. But they're taking out the correct anger on just property, on bullshit property, not on a person. But then they're doing that, and then they turn around and they walk over to the Korean grocer's place. And they're like, you're next. And they walk over to him. And then the Korean grocer is like, no, you, me, same. He says, you, me, same. And then they're like, okay. So in that moment, he handled it better, so he gets spared.
Right.
And so all of that, it's speaking to, like, so much in terms of race, in terms of police mistreatment or whatever, but it's so within the characters that it's just all incredibly, like, logical and well done and not beaten over the head.
It also goes beyond the bullshit. To me, it's one of the great scenes of the movie where he throws a trash can in the window.
Yeah.
Because it's just rage. And it's just
Yes.
anger. And it's not saying it's good or bad. It's just saying it's there.
Yes.
And that's something you get lost with all the protests. People are like, you shouldn't vandalize. You
Right.
shouldn't do this. It's like, outside of these points, which are just fucking points that can be talked about either way. If you go outside of that and look at the humanity, you can look at it and go, look.
Yeah.
There's a real rage in society about shit.
Right.
And it's not being treated.
And that
People aren't hearing someone, and that
Right.
causes rage. And just look at the anger, and let's look at the anger and talk about it instead of getting into the ideology of vandalism and protest or whatever the fuck. Yeah.
And it's and then the last scene between Spike and Danny Aiello, Sal, they're talking to each other, and Spike's just there. the place just burned down. He threw in a trash can, they burned it
Yeah.
down. And Sal's mad. He's like, this was my life. And
Yeah.
he's like, you're going to get it from the insurance. And he's like, that's my fucking place.
Yes.
I built it. I laid the bricks. I did all the fucking shit. And Spike's like, a guy's dead. Who cares?
Right.
And you feel for both of them.
Which
you know?
is that,
you do.
yeah, and that's
you
the key
feel,
to art.
Yes. You feel for both of them. Like, obviously, a guy dying is way worse than somebody's business burning down. But you feel the humanity of both of them. And they're in that standoff. Where they like the money's on the ground and like who's gonna he's like you take it, and Spike picks it up and he's like what are you gonna do? And Spike's like get paid. He's still focused on his own shit, and that to me is what like anything I like the most in movies. It's where it's like every character has their own kind of wants and they are existing.
Yes.
They are existing with or without the protagonist.
Yes.
They have their thing that they're doing.
Is key. That is key to
they're
characters.
driven in their own way, and ideally it conflicts with the protagonist, but they have a thing that they're going to do.
Yes, and that is we talk a lot on the show about Election, how great Election the movie is. And
Yeah.
if you've seen Election, everyone has a very specific desire.
Right.
No one's necessarily good or bad, but they all
Sure.
have a specific desire and their own narrative of the situation.
Right.
We all create our own narratives based on our
Totally.
desires. And whenever a movie seems to share in only one person's narrative,
Right.
that's when it becomes shallow. That's when it becomes agenda driven.
Yes.
And really, the only message of any movie, the only agenda of any movie should be to see people feel closer and see people more as human beings than you did before. That should be the only agenda.
Yes, and
Yeah.
and to look at and when you show people just as like plain villains or whatever,
Yes.
you're reducing everything, and it's not taking any kind of like complicated
Yeah.
look at, which does not have to mean like you have. It's not about like finding the humanity in like
No.
the Klan or David.
It's about
Duke.
understanding
like,
their desires.
But also it's seeing like the kind of everyone we love has something shitty about them.
Yes.
Has some kind of trait in their personality or some kind of like relationship or dynamic they have that has been like that they're in the wrong.
Right,
you know what I
right,
mean? And so it's just like I don't know. That's just like way more interesting if you're like, okay, I understand why that person made that choice, and that's what we tried to do with Flatbush, where it's like, okay, I get every character, in my view, behaves selfishly at different times.
Yes.
But I get why every character makes the choices they make.
That's exactly right. It's not about morality.
Yeah.
It was never about morality. When people are like, this character's not likable, it's not good enough. It's never about morality. To me, it's about the hardest thing in screenwriting, really understanding what the person's motives and wants are
Right,
and
right.
what their dreams are.
Right.
And that if you can do that, morality doesn't really... you
Because-
can play... You show person's awful, but as long as you understand where they're coming from...
Well, because that's where that's how everybody lives.
Yes, exactly.
That's any person who is alive.
Yes.
is not living as like I'm the villain.
No,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like
They all... That's why like a movie like Red Rocket was so interesting. You saw it, right?
yeah, that was the Sean Baker one. Yeah.
He's reprehensible, but it's clear he
Sure.
has dreams.
Sure,
And it's
yeah.
clear he wants to get back and have a
Right.
comeback, and you relate to those things. So to me, it's like just realizing everyone is human and
Yeah.
making that's the important thing, and that goes beyond ideology, and the best movies
and there's
are.
there's different in different moments in like the show. It's like you could look at my character, and there are people who are like, oh, like my character's the fuck up, the bad
Yeah.
guy, and some are like, oh, I think his character, and so it jumps around, but hopefully you could just have empathy for all of them, or you don't, and that's okay too.
And you have empathy, I think, from just seeing people really have dreams and wants that sometimes
that sometimes
fail,
work out,
and
sometimes they don't.
And
sometimes
that creates empathy more so than being like, that's a good person.
right.
You know what I mean?
It's if it's the good versus evil, it's like okay.
I have very little empathy. Like someone like
Okay.
Tim Robbins in Shawshank is just such a saint.
Right.
I don't empathize with that. You know what I mean? I empathize more with Sean Penn and
Right.
Walking. You know what I mean?
But all those scenes where it's like I get why this person feels that way. I get why the other person does. Like that's the best scene in Rocky to me. You ever see Rocky? It's
I
about
have
a boxer.
seen Rocky. Yeah, I'm familiar.
So the best scene is when Mickey goes over to Rocky's house to ask if he can manage him. And Rocky, who's been blown off by this guy forever, Mickey didn't want to look at him. He didn't believe in him. And now that Rocky has this title shot, he's like showing up at his door and like, let me help you.
Yeah.
And Rocky doesn't say yes. He's like, fuck off. He just yells at him and tells him to get the fuck out. He's like, what about my pride? What about,
Yeah.
he's just yelling at him and getting him the fuck out of there. And that is way more, because I get why he's so angry,
Yes.
I get why we all have had that. It's like, where were you when I needed you, you know?
Yes.
And seeing that's way more interesting than just like, he's the person who's there to just guide him
Yes.
or whatever. That's like the dynamic that I'm like.
It's feeling. It's real feeling. It's Renoir, the director, has this quote. I think it's from one of his movies, I believe it. But it's like, everybody has their reasons.
Right.
And it's always an important thing to remember with any script you write. Everybody has their reasons.
Right.
And that's important to remember. But so where can they find Flatbush Misdemeanors?
It's on Showtime, and then there's a Showtime like extension on Hulu and Amazon, and then there's just some merger with Paramount. So maybe if you have one, you can get the other. But also, just DM me. I'll give it to you.
How many people can watch Showtime at the same time on one subscription?
Let's test it. Let's test the fucking thing.
The show's great. I love the show. It's so funny. I'm always laughing out loud. And you've got emotion. It's funny. It's great, and it's a joke heavy show, but without feeling jokey, which is great. A great show, and you got to watch it. And it's an awesome show, and influenced heavily by Woody Allen and Roman Polanski and
Epstein.
Epstein. You want to do any other plugs? You go anywhere?
Watch The Player by Robert Altman.
Oh, that's the one we were going to talk about. But
whatever.
Well, we homaged it by me breaking your movie down into a synopsis.
At Dan J. Perlman on this stuff, but whatever. Watch Raanan special coming out soon.
Coming out September 14th. If you're watching this, subscribe to my fucking YouTube channel because I need the numbers up. But it's coming out September 14th.
Let's get him to 1 million.
1 million.
Let's get him to 1 million.
Only 990 million away from that.
You're almost there.
But
it takes a village.
You can subscribe at jokesfromtheunderground.com. You don't have to try to type my name in YouTube. So just type that.
That's a good YouTube name. Yeah.
Jokesfromtheunderground.com. And also you can see me on the road. Where's my phone? Okay, I'm in. Will this come out tomorrow? You think? Yes. Okay, I'm what? Tomorrow morning. Awesome. Well, I'm in Albany Funny Bone, headlining this Friday. And then next weekend, I'm at Toronto, a comedy club in Royal Theatre in Toronto, September 8th through 10th. I'm at Comedy on State in Madison, September 23 to 24. And Funny Bone Omaha, November 18th through 19th. So catch me on there. But most importantly, fucking subscribe to my YouTube. Specials coming out. Dan, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like we went full circle. We used to have a podcast.
That's right.
You made me delete every episode when your show was coming out.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry. That must have pissed you off, and I apologize.
With that thing, I understood. Well, the real insult to injury is that it's because it's nothing you said. It was clearly just worried that you would be laughing at some horrible thing.
Which I know I was. I
get it. It was a testy time. I think Shane Gillis had just been canceled.
People were looking to get mad.
Yeah, it was a testy time. But now you've done the show.
And now I can admit I laugh at most crazy takes you have.
Yeah, so it worked out well. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Watch the show. It's excellent. And thank you all. We'll be back next week with a different guest. And that's it.
Mwah.
Cut.
Joe likes Scorsese and Raanan is Jewy. It's Joe and Raanan talk movies.